What's up, Valley Flow Yogis? Today we're going to talk about downward facing dog pose, also known as downward dog or simply down dog. So grab your mat and we'll get started. So downward facing dog pose, in Sanskrit it's Adho Mukha Svanasana. Adho meaning down, Mukha meaning facing or face, and Svana meaning dog. Asana is pose or seat. So Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. So down facing dog, it's an inversion. Your hips are higher than the head and the heart, so that automatically stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which if you've taken my classes before, you've probably heard me mention that, and I love to talk about that because I'm a nurse. So, but anytime your hips are higher than the head and the heart, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. It decreases your heart rate and blood pressure. So even though you're working in down dog, pressing away from your mat, activating your shoulders, sending your hips high, it still is an inversion. You're still working to slow down that heart rate, rest. You're sending that signal to your brain that I'm okay, everything's good. In a lot of classes, it's considered a resting posture, but for a lot of people, it's not a resting posture. It can be really intense on the wrists, the shoulders, and I will talk about that more later in the video, modifications that you can do instead of down dog if it's not your favorite thing. But it's not a very restful posture for some people. It's not a lazy pose. You are working, as I said, you're pressing down into the earth, sending your hips high, heels toward the ground, drawing the navel to the spine, so you're activating your core muscles. There's a lot that goes into down dog, and there's a lot of moving parts, but in yoga we want to focus on that full body experience. So putting all the pieces together in order to make your down dog as effective as possible. The other thing to remember is we're making the shape, but it's going to look different for everybody based on your body type, your hip orientation. So feel free to practice this with me, or just sit and take in all the information the first round of watching this video, and you can always practice the second round of the video or practice after the video. So up to you, yogi's choice as always. So we'll start with some key points. I'm going to start to make the shape. So you're going to want to spread your fingers nice and wide in down dog. I have long fingers. My mom will tell you that. I probably should have played piano or something, but you're going to want to spread your fingers nice and wide, making an L shape with your thumb and your pointer finger. Now you don't want to do this too intensely because I've been told you can, kind of cause injury to this joint here if you're really too intensely trying to make that L shape. But you want to work to make that L shape, really keying in. I'm going to get a little closer. Keying in on pressing here and here. We want to take a lot of the pressure off of the wrist, so just be aware of trying not to press in here, but you want to press in to the base of your index and the base of your thumb and your pointer finger and your thumbprint. So all four of these points, you really want to key in and focus on pressing in there and spreading your fingers nice and wide. I tend to like to drop my pinkies off the edge of my mat too, because that just gives me more space in my shoulders. I have broad shoulders, so it's, like I said, everybody's different. So we'll start in tabletop position. Pinkies are dropping off the mat. I'm making that L shape with my pointer and thumb, and my pointers are pointing straight forward at the front of my mat. You want to rotate your elbow pits and your biceps forward. So again, we can all do this in tabletop position. And then once we peel our hips up into down dog, we want to rotate the shoulders away from the ears, wrap the shoulder blades back, lengthen the spine. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to get into down dog. But one of my favorites, I guess there's not a whole bunch, but one of my favorite ways I've been taught is to kind of peel the hips up. So you kind of start with the knees bent, you're hovering in tabletop, and then work to peel the hips towards the sky. Now I'm going to step back a little bit, feet hip distance apart of the back of my mat, because we really want to work to lengthen the spine, send the hips high, and find that natural curvature in the back. We don't want to be rounded here. We don't want to look like a rainbow. We want to look like an upside down V shape. So in order to accomplish that, I'm going to micro bend my knees. My heels aren't going to quite reach the mat, and you know what? They may never. It's okay. Wrap the shoulder blades back, rotate the elbow pits forward, biceps rotate forward. So if you want to get into this shape, you absolutely can. Take a few breaths, working to press into the pointer and the thumb, making that nice L shape. And then come down for a rest, send the knees toward the ground. So making an upside down V shape. Drishti is between your thighs or your feet, 1 point behind you, your gaze. Feet are hip distance apart. And yeah, nice strong arms, strong legs. An important thing here too is, I'm gonna get back into down dog. Peeling my hips up. It's finding an equal balance between your feet and your hands. So we don't want to dump all the weight into our hands and feel, pretty light or loose in the feet. We also don't want to dump a bunch of weight into the feet and then not feel any weight in the hands either. So finding that nice equal distribution of weight, pressing away from your mat, clawing through the fingertips, bending the knees. The first down dog, or even for the first few down dogs of your yoga practice, walk it out. This really helps to, release that expectation that you have to have your heels on the ground, and it really just helps to work to send your hips high. So a couple more points I want to make as you're practicing your down dog, and you can practice these modifications with me. If you're experiencing a lot of wrist pain, first of all, doing a really good wrist warm-up can help with that. So I always teach to interlace fingers, rotate the wrists one way and then the other. You can do them independently of one another. It's really good to warm up your wrists in tabletop, shifting forward and back. You can do your hands in all directions, facing you. So a good wrist warm-up is important for yoga always, because your wrists have tiny little working parts in them. So good wrist warm-up is important, but if that's still just too much for you and you're cued down dog in your yoga practice, just come into tabletop. That's fine. You're still working, you're still building strength in your arms. Still make sure to really press away from your mat, clawing through the fingertips. Another modification for down dog is to come into dolphin pose. So it's kind of like working from puppy dog. Elbows come underneath your shoulders, and then just curling the toes under, sending the hips high, and you're on your elbows instead of your hands, so you're completely off your wrists. And again, just working to send the hips high. You can pedal out here. You can micro bend the knees. So that's a pretty intense pose for your shoulders. You'll feel heat pretty quickly in that one. But if you're really having problems with your wrists, that's another modification for down dog. So you can always come into that too. So putting it all together one final time, I'm going to come into one more down dog. Just walking you through once more, letting my pinkies drop off the edge of the mat, making that L shape with my pointer and thumb. Pointer fingers face the front of the mat. Curling my toes under, sending my hips high, heels toward the floor, walking it out, rotating my biceps forward and my elbow pits forward, clawing through the fingertips, feet are hip distance apart at the back edge of my mat. Working to bend the knees and send my hips high. Shoulders wrap back.
finding that ocean breath, breathing.
Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any other suggestions for other tutorial videos. Keeping it simple. That way it's easier for you to get into the posture when you're actually in class. You know those key points and you can just jump right in. So that's it. Let me know if you have questions, and I'll see you next time.